1, 2, 3.
All right, welcome back to Vegas Unwrapped. Aaron Phillips, Ricky Cash, JPEG behind the camera. We are now honored and pleasured, just beyond words, to welcome to Vegas Unwrapped a Hall of Famer, Mr. Cash.
2013.
2013 Hall of Famer, WWE legend wrestler, the man that I saw win his title, my first live event in 1978 against superstar Billy Graham. Mr. Bob Backlund joins us here in studio. Welcome to Vegas Unwrapped, Bob.
It's a pleasure to be here.
That
was February 20th.
That's right, February 20th, right after, actually that was a couple days after my dad's birthday, so I think it was as much of a birthday gift for him as it was for me to see my first live event at the age of 14.
You know, Bob, I know this guy for almost 20 years, and if I have not heard about the heavyweight championship fight on February 20th, 1978 at Madison Square Garden, 500 times I haven't heard it once. So it's a real pleasure for me, not the huge wrestling fan that these two guys are, but just to meet you and know a little bit about you. I'm delighted you're with us.
Mr. Cash, it's my pleasure to be here.
Just made my day. I'll see you. Go ahead.
Goodbye. Well, I'll tell you, it's an honor for us, and I mean, there are just so many questions that wrap around in my head, not only about wrestling in general, but I mean, you were, for me, and probably many wrestling fans from that genre that knew you from WW at the time, was called the Triple WF, Worldwide Wrestling Federation. You were probably the first real superstar that people were able to latch onto as someone to follow in the wrestling, dare I say, arena. I mean, that's big stuff nowadays.
Yeah, it's to me, to be the right kind of person is important.
Sure.
And to be a person that people can say, I want my children, my little girl and my little boy to grow up like that person is very important.
And you were that all-American boy image, and clean and wrestled technically, and never said a bad word about anybody. You had that persona down, and I think for a lot of kids, it worked for me, because here I was, I saw you live at the age of 14. I'm like, doggone it! I mean, this is class here, and I think there's probably a lot of people out there that felt the same way.
Well,
If they didn't, shame on them.
I appreciate it. And I really appreciate the wrestling fans that supported me. It was very energizing to walk into Madison Square Garden and hear the building shake when you walk out there. It made me have a lot of strength and a lot of power. And I know I wasn't the biggest guy, I wasn't the meanest guy, I wasn't the best wrestler, but the amount of energy that the people put into my body was outrageous.
Adrenaline is a huge factor, but pound for pound, Bob, you were right up there with some of the classics. I mean, some of the big guys. I mean, you and I talked about it coming here earlier. You put Hulk Hogan up into a single armbar lift. I mean, not too many people can say that.
Yeah, that was called a short arm scissor.
Short arm scissor.
He had me in a hole called a short arm scissor, and I picked him up with one arm, and he weighed 340 pounds at the time. And he should have been doing that to me.
And twirling you and everything else. Wow, outrageous. So, go ahead, Cash.
Bob comes out of classical training,
Yes.
South Dakota State.
Mm-hmm.
North Dakota State.
North Dakota State.
It's
And along with North Dakota, during the 60s and 70s, were tremendous wrestling powers.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw a picture of this guy in a football uniform. So I know you did. I know you dabbled in that. Was there any point in time that you thought maybe you were going to make football the career and not wrestling?
No, football was, I was very interested in football because I didn't have to diet. In wrestling, my junior year in college, I played in the bowl game in July, in the 9th. It was just called the Community Bowl, and we won the game. The wrestling season had already started. I lost 40 pounds in a week.
In a week?
And I lost the first match because I lost.
I don't want to ask. I don't want to ask how.
Yeah,
Wow.
I lost 40 pounds in a week, so I could get on the team.
Wow.
We got to the national tournament, and I wasn't seeded because I didn't have enough matches. I needed one more match. I only had 9, and I didn't get seeded at 190 pounds. They had a tournament at North Dakota that year, the NCAA's. It was
You had a very special trainer that I read about back in the college days. Can you recall that person?
Well, like my coach was Bucky Vaughn.
Yeah, that's the guy.
And He was from Pittsburgh area in Philadelphia.
Another wrestling powerhouse, Pittsburgh.
He was the only wrestler to go from the NIAI, which was the smallest, and then he won the division once. He was a really tough guy. Yeah, yeah. Not real big, but a tough guy. He wrestled 150 pounds.
So how did you transition from basically, to the professional ranks, to all the different territories that you wrestled? Talk to me about how you progressed into professional wrestling back in the day. How did you progress into the different territories?
Yeah. Growing up, I watched wrestling, but my mom's the one that loved it. If we were out on the road and it was getting close to 9 o'clock in the morning, we had to turn around and go home to watch the Crusher. Back then, she was big into it, but I watched it a little bit with her. But
Gotcha.
As I was growing up, I knew the wrestlers, and I got to know them. And it was sort of an accident. I was training at a gym in Minneapolis called 7th Street Gym.
Okay.
And, there was a guy named Eddie Sharkey that was training wrestlers.
Okay.
And he asked me, if I'd work out there a few days, and there were some other wrestlers that were in the Vergania Wrestling Organization,
Oh, sure,
the AWA.
sure.
And I went through the school system.
Who was your first ever opponent that you faced
My first match
professionally?
My first match was down in Baton Rouge,
Baton
Louisiana.
Rouge. Baton Rouge.
And it was Ricky Starr.
Okay. Dare I ask who won?
No. They test you.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it was.
Well, obviously you passed the test because your history, your wrestling is legendary because you wrestled in all the major territories. You held multiple titles. People don't realize also that you are a rather significant tag team wrestler as well. You held many belts in the tag team ranks as well. What's the transition like from wrestling solo to wrestling in the tag team?
Well, in a solo match, you're out there the whole match.
Right.
It's just you, and I like that individuals part of wrestling. Like you're out there for yourself.
Right.
And you work hard, you win, you get a reward. You lose, you got to accept that loss. And especially in amateur wrestling, I think in amateur wrestling, it prepares a young man or a young lady for life more than any other sport, because you have to take that loss and you have to do something with it. And if you don't, you're not going to get any place.
Right.
But as soon as you learn when you lose, why you lost, you're going to climb the ladder of success.
Mhm.
And that's what happened to me. I lost every match I had for 5 years. They wanted me to quit. But I just picked up and started trying to ask. I started bugging my coach about, what did I do wrong? Why did I lose?
Right.
And and that was for a lot of years.
It must have been frustrating because you were so successful in college.
When you lose, you get mad and you get depressed about yourself. So, and then now you don't have a good attitude when you go out in the ring. If you don't have an attitude, I'm going to win, why even go out there? So, but after I started learning a little bit about, I made a foolish mistake on a takedown. I put my head down. When you have your head down, you go down.
Which way do you go when your head's facing?
So,
right?
But that's one of the reasons I love amateur wrestling, because of what it does for young people and prepares them for life. Because when you get out there in the world, it's you against the world to get that job. And the same thing in wrestling. It's you against your opponent. You can't blame it on the quarterback.
You were the second longest holder of the major title for, what was it, about 7-8 years that were closer to
6
10?
years.
6?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hogan was ahead of you, and then you're ahead of Bruno, right? You're in
Right.
between Hogan and Bruno as far as your
Absolutely.
longest reign.
Yeah.
That's today you're lucky if a title holder holds it for 6 months or a year. I mean, it's just so different now than back then. And we were talking earlier in the green room. I mean, technical wrestling is few and far between today. It's not what people want to see, and it's unfortunate because that's really where the art form of wrestling is.
Yeah. Well, especially the people that have watched what it was before.
Right.
They know the difference. They know there is a difference. There's some people out there that when they get to be older, they're going to say that same thing about wrestling.
Right.
It's not like when I was a kid.
Right. Right.
So, but the wrestling has changed, and there is a sort of an art to the game. You start out at this level, and then you end an hour later at this high level.
Right.
or maybe 20 minutes later.
Sure.
I used to love those hour matches.
Right.
Yeah, that was, they were fantastic, and especially how the people, you know, you'd start out and you just would do a little move, and then a little move, and it would just build, and you hear the people.
Yeah, the people
get
would go
into
with
it
you,
a little
yeah,
more and a
yeah.
little more, and it's hard to explain how. I did some things in the ring that I could never do in practice because of that crowd
Right.
support and
Sure,
power,
sure.
the noise and the feeling.
I mean, I remember the ring announcers when they would announce Gary Michael Capetta and probably Howard Finkel early on. And this match now with a 20-minute time limit or 60, you don't hear time limits anymore when they're introduced to start a match.
Yeah.
You don't hear that anymore. It's 5 minutes if you're lucky. Insert a commercial here and there so you get 8 minutes. But you don't hear the time limit stuff anymore unless it's a match, like an Iron Man match that they have now where you wrestle as much as you can in 60 minutes and whoever wins with the most amount of falls. But you don't hear that anymore.
Yeah.
Bob had a number of 60-minute draws over
Yes.
his career, and he also seemed to find himself in the steel cage more often than most wrestlers. What was that like, that you're in that cage and you can't go out of the ring to come back? I mean, that must have put a tremendous strain on you.
Yeah, well, the cage match is something, I didn't really enjoy them either.
You were in a lot of them.
I like going out in the mat, in the ring, and having is the most scientific match that I could have, and still keep the interest from everybody in the building.
Mhm.
And with the cage matches, there's big opportunities to get hurt there. You get thrown into the cage, and it doesn't move.
No, it's steel. It's not giving.
There's only a few things that Aaron has rubbed off on me, so I've got two holds for you. When I ask them to you, explain them to me. One is the crisp-faced chicken wing,
Cross-face chicken.
cross-face.
Can't read your own writing?
No,
Put your
cross-face,
glasses on.
cross-face chicken wing,
Which is his hold.
right? And the other is the atomic drop.
Oh.
So tell me about those two, and what
Two different style
are they?
holds.
What are they? What do you do?
Well, across.
God, put him in the cross.
Put him in the-
I was afraid to ask that question.
That was the setup if there ever was one.
Just for that. I'm older than him.
The cross-face chicken wing is, I invented that move.
Yeah, I know you did.
But the cross-face has been in wrestling for a long, long time. And so has the chicken wing. But I was the first one to clasp my hands when I had those two moves on somebody.
That must have hurt.
And it does. The cross-face is when you get somebody's chin, you turn it. And then the chicken wing is when you get a guy's arms back like a hammerlock, but you put your arm under his and you clasp your hands. So it.
You sure don't want to try it,
No,
Josh?
thanks. No, I've had one shoulder
That's true, you did have
surgery.
shoulder.
I'm not going to have another one.
Yeah.
That's right. What about the atomic?
The atomic knee drop, you get
Yeah.
somebody up on your shoulder and you drop them down on your knee. Right, his hips hit your knee.
It wasn't pretty much the backside.
That was the one that was an ending. That usually ended a lot of matches, right?
And that was something that
Well, it could.
I'd pick the guy up and walk around the ring with him up there, and then I'd walk him into the corner where the turnbuckle was, and then run to the other side and push him up off my shoulder and bring him down to my knee. And it was nobody ever did it that way. And the atomic knee drop, nobody even does it now. And the last time I see somebody do it, they did it like an old lady.
Crazy. Ted,
I wouldn't mind showing you the sleeper hold.
No thanks.
oh, it'll help you sleep.
I'm sure it will.
It'll help you sleep.
I'm okay.
It's only a hold you'll feel effect. What did you say, about 3 seconds
It doesn't take long. Yeah.
Wow.
to start feeling the effects?
I don't ever put anybody to sleep. You can do it for just a little bit, and you'll know that if I did it any longer, you'd go to sleep.
How do you like that?
About 2 seconds, maybe. Yeah.
No, I'm good, thanks.
I'm okay with it.
I'm good. I got to drive him back, so doesn't want to do anything there. Now, Ted, I want to ask you a question.
Grab your mic.
Today's, I know I'm changing it up here.
That's fine.
Today's
He's the president.
wrestlers that we just watched on the pay-per-view.
Right.
Who would you say today's wrestlers would be a mirror image of the Bob Backlund style of wrestling from 30 years ago?
Wow.
I'll give you multiple.
I guess Daniel Bryan.
There you go. I said the same thing, that just from a technical standpoint,
Right.
I would say that because Daniel is a technical wrestler by nature, per se.
Right, right.
And of course, Bob wrote the book on technical holds. I mean, could you imagine if the two of them had a match today?
Yeah,
How
that
cool
would be pretty interesting. Yeah, I mean, I had to think about it for a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, Daniel Bryan, would be the one closest today, rather than most of the wrestlers
Right.
that don't have the technical
Right.
moves that he does, or that Bob did back in the day.
So that was good, because I wasn't the only one thinking that, and we were chatting about that earlier, just from my impression about
Yeah.
that. But who do you follow today do you follow anybody in today's wrestling?
I'm not a follower,
Okay.
I'm a leader.
You really?
That just showed you.
I think I was in the sleeper there for a second. I apologize.
I
Who do you watch?
you know what, I hardly watch television.
Really? Okay.
I'm doing something all the time.
Yeah.
I can't stand retirement, I can't stand sitting at home. It's so boring. I'm out there doing something.
I gotta imagine all the years being on the road, that adrenaline rush, like you said, going into arenas, it's kind of tough to replace that.
And I work out every day.
Okay.
I don't miss a workout. If I have to, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, do my workout.
There you
do
go.
what I gotta do. But
Where was home for you, Bob?
well, home. I was raised in Princeton, Minnesota, and then we live in Connecticut now.
So you were a Vikings fan back in the day?
Yes, I still am.
Okay.
They can't ever get a Super Bowl. It's hard to live out in where you got the Boston team and then
Yeah,
the Giants. The,
Right.
You're
You're right in the
and
middle
still
of
be
it.
a
You're right.
Vikings. Yeah.
Connecticut, it's like a Civil War state,
Yeah, really. We've had Joey Brown. We've had the pleasure of interviewing Joey Browner, one of their great defensive backs from the Vikings, in the past. So, all right, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to step aside for a quick break, because now what I'd like to do after the break is we're going to talk about what Bob's doing now. He's got some appearances here in Vegas, and of course you can find him on Facebook for other future appearances. And I think President Ted and I are going to go see Bob on Wednesday down at the Toy Shack. So we'll talk about that on the other side of the break. You're listening to Vegas Unwrapped with Phillips and Cash. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with Bob Backlund right after this. All right, welcome back to Vegas Unwrapped. Aaron Phillips, Ricky Cash, JPEG behind the camera, Bobcat on the board, and our very special guest, Mr. Bob Backlund, Hall of Famer, Mr. Cash. We are in the presence of greatness, a true Hall of Famer. WWE induction 2013.
It's not often that I do homework, is it?
No, I know, this is very impressive.
I hope
very
you're
impressed.
happy.
I'm very happy. This
Well,
is,
after I've been hearing about Bob for so many years, I would have felt absolutely lost, because it's not that I'm not a big fan, I haven't been exposed to it.
right.
Whereas you guys,
Well, even though we sat at your house 2 weeks ago, absconded with your 60-inch television to watch Fastlane, and you didn't come down the steps to watch it.
I want to watch WrestleMania.
Okay.
That's what I want to watch.
That's coming up end of the month. We
I
got
heard.
it. We got
Okay.
it. We'll be at your house.
I'll be there.
We'll have the 60-inch.
28 days.
That's right.
All right, I'll be there for that.
All right, by the way, Bob, you were down at, today was the toy convention, right? Over at Circus, right? Is that where it was?
That was yesterday.
Yesterday, okay. But tomorrow, here's what's really cool. So this is going to be a nice segue into Bob's after wrestling life, so to speak, and some of the things that he wants to do. Tomorrow night at UNLV at 7:05 p.m. at the, let's see, where is it? The Elite Athletics Complex, which is 4505 South Maryland Parkway. Bob's going to be speaking to the student athletes, the public, whoever's going to come down, and I'll let Bob mention what he's going to talk about. So get down there. If you've missed it, I'm sure Bob will be back in town again, and we'll probably be doing this. And then on Wednesday, down at the Toy Shack, our friend Johnny down there at Fremont Street, from 12 to 4 on Wednesday, Bob will be down there meeting and greeting and signing autographs, and he'll have posters available, pictures, whatever they do at these things. And President Ted and I will be running down there Wednesday, and you can come down if you're up to walking around, and we'll definitely see you down at the Toy Shack on Wednesday.
That would be excellent.
So we look forward to it. It'll be a lot of fun. Maybe I can swing my dad by if he's off on Wednesday, or get him to stop in while he's on the road. So get him down there to stop by. He'll
Bob,
love it.
Tell us what you're going to be talking about.
Yeah,
at
talk about
UNLV.
it. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I'm really excited about it. I had a lot of things happen to me when I was a young man in high school and in junior high school. For instance, I had a little problem with peer pressure one time when I was in 8th grade. And I got to doing something maybe that I shouldn't have been doing. And then I was at a place one night, and the guys come over and said something to me about somebody who wanted to fight them. And I said, I'll fight them too, if you're gonna. And I thought they were my friends. And I went outside to fight these guys they were gonna have a fight. They never came out. I went out there. I was all by myself.
Wow.
And
Doesn't surprise me at all.
I would have done anything for these guys. I would have done anything. But I realized, you know, when I went out there, I turned around and there was nobody else there. The guys that they were gonna fight with didn't do anything because they thought I was crazy coming out there by myself. But anyway, I walked home that night. And I walked home, I was in 8th grade, it was 9 miles. You know, it's Princeton, Minnesota, and you don't see a car for 9 miles sometimes. But all night on the way home, I was thinking, how do you know when somebody's really your friend? You know, how do you know? You know, like you get into a group and you smoke a cigarette with them just because you want to fit in. That's called peer pressure. And after that, when I got home, it took me 4 years to find a friend. And it was almost one of the most important things that ever happened to me because I never succumbed to peer pressure again in my life. And one of the biggest things in the wrestling business was chemicals. And sometimes they try to indoctrinate you into them. And I refused, and I didn't take the temptation of trying to fit in to the world of professional wrestling because of what happened to you in 8th grade. And if I would have, I probably would be dead right now, because most of them are dead. And they hated me because I wouldn't do it. But I'm here, I'm solid, I'm still going, and I have fun every day of my life, and it's going to be great to tell you some other things that happened to me when I was in high school.
Wow.
That made me the person I am today.
Wow.
What are you doing tomorrow night, Cash?
I'm with you if you're going. I'm with
Wow.
you. I'd love to hear that.
Wow.
Because it's such a good message, especially today with bullying and peer pressure and stuff like that. It takes a very, very strong character, and I guess it has to do with your upbringing. You know, it's the way you're taught, and I think you know that was a long 9-mile walk, and you had a lot to think about during that time. And obviously, you came at a young age to come to a conclusion that many youngsters, young adults, don't ever come to.
Yeah, no, and,
Good job.
Yeah, you know, who knows, you know, when you're younger, you don't know, and you make, every decision you make, you're gonna make a good decision or a bad decision. And, you know, and usually the easy road is gonna be the bad decision. And it's gonna affect you, it's not gonna affect you right away, it's gonna affect you later on in life. But the easy road is usually a road downhill to defeat.
Aaron and I have been saying that the world is not that complicated. It's made up of choices, decisions, and consequences. It's not that hard. And then you got to make the right decision or face the consequences.
You know, everybody makes a bad decision.
Oh yeah.
But it's.
I have 3 wives.
Yeah. You know, well, you know,
You're living with all of them.
but it's your decision to fix that decision. And if I made a bad decision when I was in 8th grade. But you have to take the responsibility to fix it, and then know that you did something that you shouldn't have, and never do it again. And you know, it would have been easy for when I got into wrestling because you want to fit in. The top guys, you want to fit in. They can help you get ahead. But you have to fight against that and tell yourself, I'm going to do what's right for my future and for my health and for my family. And in the wrestling business, it was very important for me when I tell people not to take cocaine and steroids, that I didn't do it. I walk the walk. I don't just talk the talk.
Wow.
It's and you know it's I guess it's not surprising because of what your experiences you had in the ring that you know 1978 most inspired wrestler, 1980 most inspired wrestler, but by 1984 most hated wrestler. And I think some of that had to do with the fact that you stayed on the straight and narrow line, and the public
Didn't want to hear it.
Didn't want to hear it anymore. You know, the 80s, they were already crazy by the 80s. You know, the youth.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that's what made that character when he delivered those messages so anti-all-American, but yet he was speaking the truth. And rarely do you get that in the bad guy in wrestling, to speak the truth and be hated for it.
Yeah.
And he just amazing.
Kind of
Just
like
absolutely
Captain America.
Yeah, exactly. Although Bob didn't have a shield, he just had his hands.
Yeah, really.
He had his tools right there.
Didn't need a shield.
No, he didn't need a shield, that's for sure. So, all right, so you're going to be doing the speaking circuit now, delivering these messages, not only just to college students, but really anybody of any walk of life.
Yeah, I was in Bristol, Connecticut, just before I came out here, and gave a speech at the Chamber of Commerce in the morning, and it was adults, and they were, there were some people in their 30s, some people in their 60s and 70s, and anybody and everybody can learn something and try to improve their lives at any age. But it is important to get out there and speak to kids in high school and junior high school, and if you can just put it in their mind a little bit and maybe realize that you can say no.
Right.
You can say
Sure.
no. You don't have to fit in. It isn't always the best thing to do.
Right.
And you don't have to just, I'm going to please these people just because they want me to do it.
Right.
You got to think about it and see if you can't go home and say, Mom and Dad, I did this today, you got to question yourself in doing it then.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good point. If you can't be proud of what you've done and share it with the family, it's probably something you shouldn't have done.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That's a great point. That's a great point. Now, you have a book in the works, hopefully, coming
Yes.
out soon.
Yes, sir.
Be anxious to read that when it comes out. Really about your life, is that correct?
It's about my life. It's about the wrestling career, and there's and again, I said this before. There's a bunch of things that happened to me between junior high and high school that by the time I was a senior in high school, I was ready to go out in the world and climb the ladder of success.
Okay.
I had another, all the things that happened to me really prepared me. And it wasn't necessarily going to the class every day. It's things that they don't show you and tell you about in schools. They'll teach you how to read, but do they teach you how to set goals? You have to have goals. Otherwise, how do you know where you're going to go?
Right. Or how to get there.
How to get there? Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So at this point in time, you're in a sense, you're giving back what you've learned and what you've done over the years. So
Well,
what is your goal?
Mr. Cash, I wouldn't say at this point in time. Young people have been important to me since I got out of college.
Right, I get that.
I had kids tournaments all through my career, different places. I tried to get as many kids into amateur wrestling as possible because of what I said about what wrestling can do for you earlier in the interview.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to continue this because I have more time now, and I believe that our world needs somebody that's going to say it, and he's going to back it up. And he's not going to get out there and get his name in the paper the next day doing the same thing he did to tell you not to do.
Since 2000, you've come back and gone into the ring on a number of occasions for different events for whatever reason you were doing that at the time. Is that still in your future? I mean, are you going to get back in there for some celebrity all-star or, new generation, old generation? I mean, because I've seen some of it, and, are you finished?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I feel good. I feel very energetic. I work out every day.
No kidding. You almost broke my hand when I said that.
My pulse was 45 the other day, and I told him that I wouldn't mind getting back in the ring. I'd like to see maybe put a little W back in it. Yeah.
W for wrestling.
I
Okay,
I got that.
Just want to make sure.
I'm here. I am so tuned in.
And I think there's a large market that really would like to see that. I think after a while, when you see all the fisticuffs and the tables and the chairs and cement blocks, it's nice to go back to that wrestling genre, go back to actually with the roots and the artistry of wrestling. And I think there's a huge market for that out there, especially those, like you said earlier, who actually watched wrestling back in the day when it was wrestling before the entertainment part of it came in the mid '80s with wrestling and Rock and Hogan and Cyndi Lauper and those guys. So I think I would see it. I would pay to see you back in the ring as a wrestler again and wrestle. I would definitely do that. To see that technique again, just would be tremendous. Actually, he would, you know, Randy Orton, his father Bob, and then Bob Sr., there's 3 generations. He's wrestled Randy Orton's father and grandfather. And we shared the story with you, there was talk that he would actually, Randy Orton at one point was okay with the idea of Bob going back in the ring with him for Bob to have said he's wrestled 3 generations of wrestlers. How cool would that be?
That would be awesome.
Wouldn't that be neat?
Outstanding.
That'd be tremendous. Oh, maybe we need to like start a campaign for that.
Okay.
That would be fun.
That would be great to see. Absolutely. Listen, we're running out of time. Again, I can't thank you enough for making time to come to Vegas Unwrapped. There's so much more we could talk about. Perhaps the next time you wing through Las Vegas, we can snag you again for some updated stuff. And now I know you have a Facebook page. Bob Backlund, All-American Boy, is out on Facebook. So you can see other places where Bob is going to be appearing and doing his thing. And if you get a chance to meet him and listen to his messages, do it.
He
It's well worth it.
also has a website,
Mhm.
and on the website he has products that he's sharing with the public. You want to just
Yeah,
briefly
absolutely.
tell us about some of those products that you're pushing out there?
I just have some posters and I have some pictures, and I actually have a 1968
I saw that.
Corvette.
I saw that. I saw that.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
great.
And I've rebuilt the whole thing. I did all the grunt work, so to speak, and then I had people that painted it, were professionals, and that would fix the motor and rebuild it, and then we put it back together. And it's I'm so busy, I don't have time to play with it anymore, so I'm going to get rid of it.
Yeah,
But love the
I saw
car.
it said for sale, and I said, no, not a chance.
Yeah. So,
All right.
but
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, check out the website. We're going to go down and see him Wednesday at the Toy Shack. And by the way, do you have any replica? Do you have replica belts, or do you keep the belts that you
no,
want?
I have one belt. That's the one that holds up my
On
suspenders.
that note, Bob, thank you again for coming in. It's been a great pleasure to chat with you and meet you. Any final messages for our audience?
Next time I come here, it's Mr. Backlund to you.
Yes, Mr. Backlund. Vegas Unwrapped, Phillips and Cash. Can't end it any better. We'll be back.